Let me introduce you to our next lecturers, Tanoi Booth and Vijay Kumar, with the topic One Tool to Rule Them All.
Hello everyone, thank you for being here today. Just beginning the slides with telling something about us. We, Vijay and I, are security consultants and red teamers. We primarily do infrastructure pen testing. We have together worked for 2.5 years, pen testing various organizations, more than 50 clients now. These clients ranges from multinational companies to even startups. Interesting projects that we have had is, pen testing airport networks, banks, metro rail, 4G LTE. So what this talk would be about is basically laterally moving in an Active Directory environment as well as a non-Active Directory environment. So, and this talk would not include anything about zero-day exploits and not anything about entry points into networks. So what we primarily will be talking about in this talk is that generally in an enterprise, all the system administrators feel very powerful and privileged with specific tools that they have for maintaining the enterprise. But when the system administrators don't do their work well enough, you can use the same tool to destroy the entire enterprise, right? So why exactly IT ops and DevOps to laterally move, right? These are, of course, the most trusted clients present in the network, So every offensive security expert would be laterally moving only via a well-versed tool that is actually utilized by the IT operator in any enterprise environment. Most hacked IT operation tool is the Active Directory. In any red team engagements, we try to only hack the Active Directory and get the domain administrator and laterally move via that. So what we'd also be covering is once Active Directory has become the most targeted tool, there have been a lot of security measures implemented across it. So we would be also talking about how these security measures can also be bypassed by using some other tool or targeting some other tool other than the general ways that we already have present. So also we'd be looking at what is the exact point of Active Directory compromise. So when we are talking about Active Directory compromise, what are we trying to achieve? What is our goal? At the end, we would like to compromise critical infrastructures that need not be there in an Active Directory. And the most famous of privileged tool that is utilized was seen in NotPetya. When it came into the network with a trusted tool that is utilized by an organization, that was Medocs, and then laterally moved around using PSExec and other trusted IT operation tools. Yeah. So over to my colleague Vijay for covering the list.
Hi. How many pen testers do we have? Okay, fair enough. Cool. So mostly organizations would have a similar kind of network. If you see, there would be possibly a management VLAN, a server VLAN, and user VLAN. However, many of the times they are not configured well. There are just network ranges which are assigned to user ranges or management ranges or server ranges. So like if you see in the server ranges, probably there would be some servers such as web servers, radius servers. There would be an Active Directory which would contain mainly of domain controllers, and there would be some web servers. Okay, so user VLAN, server VLAN, and management VLAN. If you see, the typical entry point in a typical infrastructure would be either phishing, like you gather email addresses from the internet, target users or probably the IT administrators. If in many of the organizations, we are given the task of going into an organization, sitting in a conference room and see what we can do as a unauthorized, a completely beginner or a beginner to the environment. So generally what we do is like we check Wi-Fi if it is crackable. Mostly it is WPA2 enterprise, so we can't do much about that. However, many of the times what we found is like, okay, if we take the LAN cable in the conference room, put it in our laptop, probably we would get an IP address. If not, if the LAN cable is working, we can sniff the network and see if we can set a static IP address. After getting an IP address, what we do is like we scan the network ranges like by figuring out what could be the default gateway and what could be the default network addresses. Let's say if the default gateway is 192.168.56.1, possibly they would have all the network ranges in /24, and we scan ping all the network ranges in 192.168.*.1, and possibly whatever replies would be another network range. Most of the time, what we found is when we are scanning the servers, we found that there are Apache Tomcats, which with default passwords, JBoss with no authentication, Java RMI, IPMI, or HP Data Protector. In most of the organizations, recently there was this HP Data Protector. It would directly give you a reverse shell as a system. Once the another thing is LLMNR, which is link locus multicast network resolution. Is still in most of the organizations this is still enabled, and you can get a NTLM v2 password hash. In most of the organizations we have tested, what we found is like the passwords are generally simple. Either they would be company name @123 @321, or it would contain month @year. So we try these kind of passwords. Group policy preferences, many administrators still uses them to set the local administrator passwords. In one of the clients which we had in Zambia, Africa, they had 3 group policies for 3 different locations. And as soon as I got a domain user, I fetched the group policy preferences, and I was administrator of almost all the machines in there. There are some great analysis tools once you are a domain user, mainly which like Bloodhound by Harmjoy is a brilliant tool which tells you that, okay, if you are this particular user and you have to reach the domain administrator or you have to target any other administrator, it gives you a path, local users, the users which have logged on those machines, etc. Before that, it was like PowerView. In PowerView, there are multiple functions such as invoke user hunter and invoke share finder. Before Bloodhound, I used to do like we can basically read invoke user hunter and figure out, okay, which user is logged in where and which machine we have to hunt. When we have GPP, probably we would get local administrator's password, and which can be again utilized to do the lateral movement by using WMI or Metasploit PSExec or PSExec, PowerShell Empire, CrackMap.exe or PTH WinExe. There is a, like, if you want to do a remote desktop, you can use Xfree RDP also. So more or less by getting multiple credentials, you would luckily get domain administrator credentials, and you would compromise the complete Active Directory. Till now is good, more or less. Okay. So let's see if there is an enterprise with security. Now we are considering an advanced Active Directory setup, which has a firewall between the server VLAN and the user VLAN. We also have privileged identity management and SIEM, Microsoft ATA, which would detect any suspicious activity all around. To administer these machines, there are also tools such as System Center, SCCM, System Center Configuration Manager, and System Center Operations Manager. So in one of the client, what we found is like they had PIM implemented. The Active Directory domain controller was protected by PIM as well as a jump server. And we could not, like, even though we had few administrator passwords, we could not directly do a RDP to the domain controller or do a PSExec. In that case, what we found is there was SCCM installed, and the SCCM was not completely protected by PIM. So if you see what about SCCM, it's basically a unified management console. It contains a automated set of administrative tools, and you can deploy software, protect data, monitor health, and enforce compliance across all devices in an organization. So already the research has been done by Enigma. He has written targeted workstation compromise with SCCM. He has also released a tool, PowerShell SCCM. Basically, what he does is like he would utilize SCCM to select a target, like whichever machine you're gonna target. In many of the engagements, there is a specific requirement that, okay, you target this CEO or CISO just to show the impact to the higher management. So you select the machine which you want to target. You deploy a malicious application, which is mostly a PowerShell Empire payload or a Meterpreter payload. You set the customer experience, whether you want a GUI and when you want to happen, when you want that malicious application to run, when a user log on or log off, you can customize that, and you deploy that. And probably, if it runs well, you would get PowerShell Empire agent. However, in one of the clients, we did not have access to the SCCM. We had the access to the System Center Operations Manager. We try to utilize, because it's a system SCOM and not SCCM, so it's completely different. SCOM is basically used for data center monitoring health for operating systems and hypervisor. It's a single interface which shows state and health and performance. And it provides alerts based on whether the CPU usage or the RAM or the hard disk space. So we utilized systems SCOM. So what we did is like we basically created a task to execute a PowerShell Empire payload, and we executed the malicious task on the targeted group of application, and we got the PowerShell Empire agent. However, if we also do have access to the SCOM server, and if the domain administrator credentials are utilized as run as credentials on SCOM, there is a NCC SCOM complicated. They have released a script. If you have administrative credentials on SCOM and run as credentials are stored as domain administrator, you can utilize this tool to decrypt the passwords which are stored in SCOM server. So, okay, this is not probably very viewable. However, on the left-hand side, you would see that there are monitoring groups. On the right-hand side, it provides basically all the green thing is the health which is provided of the computers, whichever they are monitoring. And on the right-hand side, these are the tasks which are created using SCOM. So, okay, this is not perfectly visible, but on the task, if you see, the task can be very simple as a reboot or installing an agent or just reading that, okay, what are the local administrators on that particular machine. So these are the simple tasks, again, not really visible. But on the left-hand side, if you see, basically, it has a free space. It would tell, so like, as an administrator, if I want to know that, okay, what is the free space on that particular server, I can just execute that task, and it would give me the information. Similarly, the second one is the IP config, if I want to just know the IP address of the particular server. But at this point of time, I do not have an ability to run a PowerShell module or PowerShell payload. So for that, what we did is like, we had to create a new task to execute that. So, oh my God, this is not clearly visible. But on the left-hand side, if you see, there is an authoring tab, and on the top of that, there is a task menu. Can we, like, is it because we have stressed it, or can you try to uncompress it again? Can you try to zoom in? Yeah, zoom out. Yeah, zoom in. Not sure if it is zoomed in, that's why it's not visible properly. Okay, yeah, that's still good. So if you see, basically, we can create a task here, a new task, and there are some tasks such as command line or run a Linux command or run a script. Okay, Here, if you see, we can specify the application. So like as of now, I am saying that, okay, I want to run PowerShell, and the parameter can be a PowerShell Empire payload and the working directory. So that's it. So like when you create a task, it would get listed on the right-hand side here. So when a task is listed there, so like when you create a task and it's got listed, you just need to choose the computer which you want to target, and it would give you the PowerShell Empire agent. So, and this is very much less detected because like we are still using the authorized SCOM application to compromise the machine. So it would not be detected by SIEM or even PIM. So yeah, so like once we have the payload from the, so like in this case, we particularly targeted our domain controller because the SCOM was also administrating the domain controller. And we got the local administrator, sorry, domain administrator password from there. There are other system center management tools which we haven't explored a lot. So like there is SCCM, there is SCOM, these are Orchestra by Microsoft itself, which we haven't explored as of now. So how do we secure our environment? So like if you see, Microsoft had released some great tools such as SCM, Security Compliance Manager, which would harden your computers to a particular baseline. They have also released something called LAPS, which is Local Administrator Password Solution, which would have different password for almost all the workstations, and it's quite very configurable in like half an hour. Apart from that, they have Windows event forwarding, you can, which is free of cost, and you can select particular events to detect. With that, there is something called ESA, which is Enhanced Security Administration. You can have different different forest for administrators, and you can utilize that to make more secure. There are some reference links which mainly are Enigmas and SCOM Decrypt, and that's it from a Active Directory point of view. Tanay would cover on non-domain environments.
Yeah, so we got quite a few pen testers here. Are there any IT ops present here, sysadmins in this crowd? No? Okay, a couple of them. So these might be utilized by the sysadmins, the IT ops. So where exactly do we see a non-domain environment, right? Domain pen test, when you're doing infrastructure, you would commonly find domain environment almost everywhere, right? Non-domain environment, when you're doing something like an ERP test, where you find SAP system, all you would end up probably doing is only, try to exploit the SAP system and would not really laterally move in the infrastructure generally most of the time. If you found a vulnerability, at least what we have pen tested, if it's all on non-domain infrastructure, the SAP ERP systems, the treasury systems, the Murex systems, the Swift systems, these are all on non-domain infrastructure. So these infrastructures are actually a cluster of about 10 to 20 systems in a small world of its own, which generally the general public of the enterprise doesn't really work directly on these systems. So so IT ops would require to, because these are critical infrastructure systems, whether it's ERP or it's OT devices, IT operators would require to do specific compliance checks on these systems. And since it's about 10 to 20 machines, they would of course want to ease their tasks. Hence, they use tools like configuration managers. Like in this case, what we'd be talking about is Puppet and Ansible. So there are basically two types of configuration managers. One is the pull type and the push type. So Puppet is a pull type configuration manager. Ansible is a push type configuration manager. And of course, we'd be targeting these both tools here. Now, okay, how do we laterally move using Puppet, right? For those who do not know what Puppet is, like I said, a pull type configuration manager, which basically means the Puppet server or the main Puppet server from where the management of the systems would be done would save a configuration file, which is a Puppet configuration file. And the clients would generally, you would require to sync the clients with this configuration file that is present in the Puppet server. These are generally present in the systems or the clients as cron jobs that would keep synchronizing it over some specific period of time. And yeah. So if you look into the configuration file of the Puppet server, what we'd be having in our demonstration is basically in the Puppet clients, you would actually find the information of Puppet server in the /etc/puppet configuration file. And just before going to the demonstration, I would tell you what is the directory structure. The directory structure of any Puppet code that is saved is, as you can see, it is in /etc/puppet. In environment production, there is production, you have a manifest and a module, where in the manifest you specify which module to use. Here, in this case, what we would be doing is we would be deploying site.pp, that is your manifest file for your entire modules that need to be included. The contents of manifest.pp is on the right image. Then we'd also be providing a manifest file for our payload, that is my file. Our Puppet payload is my file, in which in manifest you have something called as the init.pp. The contents of init.pp is on the bottom image. So what we do is basically, as you can see, the attacker system, we deploy, once we have access to this Puppet server, we deploy our configuration on the Puppet server. Once you deploy it on the Puppet server, the Puppet client would need to synchronize with this configuration, and you will be able to establish a Metasploit payload, launch a Metasploit payload or any other payload that you would desire. So I guess we will give the demo at the end because we will require to shift the machine twice. So just move on to the Ansible part for now. So Ansible, basically, Ansible is a push type configuration manager. So what happens is any configuration placed in an Ansible server or rather what you would call as Ansible node, management node, would be pushed directly into the clients, like what was covered in SCOM, the SCOM. What would be required in this case is the login credentials or the SSH keys of the client machines, and that's what we utilized, right? So in this case, it's very easy in the specific demonstration that we'll be showing. It's very easy to deploy these malicious files because it's only, it would all be saved in your config file, all the credentials, so you can even log into the systems. Generally, what we have is in non-domain infrastructure, we do not have monitoring like advanced threat analytics, well-versed SIEM to actually sit and detect any intrusion activities that happen in a system. And using something like a config manager, nothing is going to stop you from deploying any payloads. So we prefer, rather than logging onto a system using SSH, we prefer to use a config manager to deploy any malicious payload. So we would move on to the demo right now.
Just enlarge the font.
So what we have here is basically I have released the codes that we'll be using here, scripts that have already been made to deploy Metasploit payloads on your Puppet or Ansible configuration servers, management nodes. The first case we would be seeing of a Ansible agent. So we have two machines, the server machine and the client machine. Right. So this is my attacker machine. Over here, the first demonstration would be of Ansible. So I have my script ready. That is, Ponsible, available on my GitHub link, which should be given in the PPT. So we run this link and we generate a payload. That you see it's being created. It's created and we have a Metasploit terminal launched, waiting for a connection to come in. Along with this, you can also see the commands that would be required by an attacker that you would want to run while you are hacking Ansible. Yeah, so this is my, Ansible server. Sorry, because the name is called Puppet. However, I'm hosting Ansible on it. And this is the IP address of my Ansible client. So now you can see there is a folder called Ansible Pawner that I have created that has the payload file. What we're going to do is we're going to host this on a Python simple HTTP server on port 8000. So we have it hosted here and we copy the link and we download it on our main Ansible system. So we have copied the payload file here. You can see it here. Now what we'd be doing is we'd be deploying this payload file on our client. So deploying this payload file follows these specific steps where we would have to mention the group that we would be attacking. So how do we figure out what is the group that we'd be attacking? So interestingly, in this scenario, what we have kept is we have kept all the client machines. We call it Ansible client. And we have the IP address mentioned along with the SSH password and the SSH user that we would want it to run as. So of course you can see I'm running as root and Balcon 2K17, which is generally the case of all the system administrators because they would want to install, do configuration checks, install softwares via some tool like this. They would definitely have root configured on it. There is a better way of actually administrating this environment, but we talk about that as well. But you would generally not see that much of an security awareness with respect to Ansible or Puppet in general. Yeah. So we go ahead and deploy the payload. So you can see it's successful. So I'm able to copy the payload from here to my destination temporary folder in the client. So you can see it's present here now. Sorry. Next, what we do is we need to make it executable, right? We need to make the payload executable, and this is the command for it. Where we make sure that a shell, we spawn a shell. This is how we spawn a shell, and we send arguments to, of course, make the payload file executable on the client machine as user root. This is also successful. And once we do that, the final step is execution of the payload. So obviously, that is just going to be simple shell, spawning a shell and running the payload as an argument. Yeah. Simple enough. And we wait for a session to be established, and we can see a session has been established now. We can interact with that session. Okay, there's something out here. Okay. Oh, well, it's too slow, so I guess we just... It's just that we have got the session and it's not working, it's too slow now. So we have killed the session now. As soon as we kill it, we get this to be shown like this. Of course, we could have run this as a background process by just sending an ampersand with it. Or use screen and done something on the side on a different shell. Yeah. Similarly, what we can also do is we have another script that I've written. It's for Puppet pawning, and the same kind of configuration. What we do is we run this Puppet payload. It creates you your entire payload, and you're good to go by just uploading this. Sorry. Yeah. You have a Metasploit running, and yeah, so we have here our Puppet Pawner payload also available. Is the same process that we utilize to get the files. You probably zip the folder and you put the folder up on the required paths that we had seen on the PPT presentation that we made. So you can already see in this example, I have already uploaded this file that is created. So we just see the contents of this file. So it has manifests and modules. So in manifests, we include. So ideally, when you're doing a pen test, you wouldn't want to overwrite all the inclusions done by the RT operator. You would just want to include this file on whichever node you would want to run as. In this case, the Puppet client is the system that we'd be attacking. So we create a node for that, and we include this file, the specific module that we have. So in the modules, you can see it's my file module that we wanted to include. Along with this, we have two files created. That is the one is the files which has the payload file in it, and another one is the manifest file, which is basically going to run the manifest for this module. That is, it's going to launch this payload, store this payload in /temp, and then it's going to change its group to root and run it as root. Of course, this is on the consideration that the cron job is also running as root, otherwise you don't have permissions to do this. And then finally, it would execute this payload. Now, let's just hope that it works. Yeah. So, What we need to do in this case is puppet agent hyphen T. Sorry. Oh. So I'm sorry about that. It doesn't seem to work, and hence what I'd be doing is probably doing a video demonstration of this. So, like I said, you just require to wait for the payload to execute, and then you would have to go over here, and you'll need to run puppet agent hyphen T, and it should ideally work, but not really sure why it's not. This is supposed to give you a session right there. Just one last try. Okay, tab doesn't work, sorry. Yeah. You can see there's a huge session that's being created, and this will be a huge session. No, this is our demo is failing. Sorry about that. Yeah. So that's basically puppet pawning, and
So it's basically like if you have compromised the Puppet server or the Ansible server, then possibly you can target one particular machine, whether it is a CEO machine or someone else's machine, because you are by trust. Oh, sorry. So like it's just like, okay, if you have if you have found a Puppet server or an Ansible server, then you can similarly to SCOM and SCCM, you can target up one particular machine, because in Puppet, if you in the site file you can specify that, okay, run this particular payload or include this file, execute it, and you will get the reverse shell. Similarly in Ansible, like if you have access to the Ansible server and it stores the SSH keys on the Ansible server, you can execute again the payloads like a Meterpreter payload or a Windows PowerShell payload, and get the shell as an administrator. Okay.
yeah, going beyond that, sorry. Okay, going beyond that, actually, no, it's fine now.
नहीं ना, तो वो स्लाइड में हो रहा है.
Just have the projector on. Yeah. So we got an interesting reply when we published this blog. telling that there is also Ansible Vault that could be utilized by IT operators. Of course, we have not seen that much utilization of Ansible Vault. However, we did some interesting research and got that Ansible Vault could actually save your passwords in history. So even though you are utilizing Ansible Vaults, does not mean you're utilizing it the right way, right? So basically, in this case, Ansible Vault is used for encrypting the passwords. As you can see, encrypting the passwords or the Ansible playbooks that you have present. As you can see over here, it's if you run Ansible Vault string, you with your credentials, you would be able to get an encrypted file down there. I don't know if it is clear. Yeah. So the two ways that I have told where you ask for a prompt and you get a prompt and you type your password in, it's a good habit. However, what's not good habit is to run via a password file. That is, unless you have access restricted it for anyone and prohibited anyone from reading it. Even in that case, if your sudo is compromised, you can actually read this file and you can get all the passwords available. So yeah, also if the Ansible Vault configuration environment is utilized with this configuration value, that is Ansible Vault password file, it will save all your passwords on the root directory, on your home directories .vault_pass.txt. So you need to obviously protect these password files, and your usage and your clearing of history is very much necessary because generally none of the IT ops do a history-c, and this is a very bad practice. Okay, so safe usage. So for utilizing Puppet safely, what you would require to do is not have cron jobs enabled on the endpoints or the client machines. Rather, have a change request for each time you're doing some compliance management and push the changes only at that time. And then further, you monitor for any configurational changes or any access being done on the system without a notice. And Ansible is using, of course, using Ansible Vault, but you utilize it safely and always use history-cw because it gives up a lot of breadcrumbs. Yeah. So these are a few links, reference links that you might want to look up. And so, yeah, this is.
So like in 2.5 years, when I joined my company and I was starting with my first pen test, I asked my fellows that, okay, how do I pen test? And they replied that you would learn it on the job. And at that point of time, what we thought is like we would start sharing about it. It's like I write a blog. Basically, I have written 3 series as of now. First is Essentials, which basically tells you a story of starting 2 people starting a startup and which goes till 10,000 people, and how do you make sure that, okay, your company is secure at that point of time. Infrastructure pen test series, I have like all the 5 stages of blog. In this one particular is vulnerability analysis. So I decided one day that, okay, I will figure out that, okay, how many ports there are, what are the common ports, and how we can exploit that. So like that is one shot that, okay, if you want to exploit Apache Tomcat or Jenkins or JBoss, okay, these are the Metasploit modules, or these are the Nmap NSEs which you can utilize to compromise that. You guys have heard of Vulhub? Vulnerable machines, vulhub.com. Okay, yeah. So like in compromising any vulnerable machine, there are certain stages, such as like we need to figure out an IP address, port scan that, start from nothing to an unprivileged user, and from unprivileged user to privileged user. So like I have listed almost every step which I have learned in 2.5 years, and a little bit of about binary exploitation. This is some special thanks to our team, which is home, Durga Dubey, Rushit, Vignesh, and Rajat. And I believe that's it. So like we are open for questions if you have. Yeah.
How do you find that CSSM or SCOM or anything else is used?
Okay. So basically, in the start of the working when we do DNS enumeration, most of the times you would found that okay, the DNS names they are quite very related to the systems they are using. So like in the DNS host name, you would still figure out that okay, they are using it.
So, and also another interesting way of finding this out would be, you might have used Bloodhound and, okay.
What?
So these are PowerShell scripts, PowerView and Bloodhound. Bloodhound is basically you have the entire, you do a reconnaissance, a graphical representation of your Active Directory. So what you could do is you can look for groups that would include system centered. So sometimes you would have a group called SCCM admins, or you would have a group called SCOM admins. You look for these Active Directory groups, okay, and you would want to target these kind of Active Directory groups or users. So Bloodhound will help you actually build from unprivileged users. You can actually get a graphical representation as to how you could reach, instead of a domain administrator, to a SCOM or a SCCM admin. Yeah.
And then you attack the clients, right?
No, so we attack the servers. So Bloodhound's concepts, Bloodhound is a tool that is developed by Harmjoy and team in the adaptive threat division of various group. Now I think so they're in Spectre Ops. So what you do here is you are laterally moving in an environment to compromise an Active Directory domain admin, right? We always try to target the domain administrator because he has the most privilege in an Active Directory environment. So if we are targeting an Active Directory domain administrator, when the domain has restrictions like PIM, privilege identity management, privilege access management, you would not directly be able to either RDP or deploy a shell on the machine, especially if you have app blocker and things like that enabled, and advanced threat analytics enabled, right? So our goal is to compromise the domain admin, and this is a way that you can compromise the Active Directory, entire Active Directory, where we target the specific group or the specific tool from an unprivileged user. So while you're targeting, so we have not covered how do we target it. We have covered what do we do after we target it. So when you target it, you would basically draw out a map, right? You have compromised a user using Tomcat, right? And you've got user XYZ, right? Now you want to target users SCOM admin, right? So how do you target it? You try to see what all systems do you need to compromise in an environment. How do you laterally move in an environment to target this SCOM admin, and using something like Bloodhound. Does that kind of solve?
Makes
Yeah.
sense. And how about Ansible and Puppet? How do you find those?
So Ansible and Puppet, basically what we have tested, right? SAP environments utilize Puppet is what I have seen in my experience. What we have seen, if you are able to hack even a single SAP system, you would find the Puppet configuration file on the system, on the Puppet client, right? In the Puppet client, if you see the configuration file, you would find a place where it says that the server would be XYZ. So I can show that to you.
So there is a file which specifies which is the Puppet server. Otherwise, you can also have a look at the Puppet, all the services which are running, because like Puppet is more of a pull configuration. So the agent has to run at certain point of time. So like if that particular agent is running, you can see in that the services in the task manager.
So one is via the agent. If it is running, you can see in the task manager on the networks that is communicating with it, and via Instat. Or you could go to the Puppet configuration file. I'm not sure if it is visible. It's not visible here. In configuration file, you actually have the node systems IP address and the DNS name mentioned over there, so you can get it via that, and then you can target the node server.
Otherwise, the DNS name of the Puppet would be always puppet.whateverdomain.com. So like if you do a ping.puppet, whatever the domain is, and if it's reachable, then probably they are using
Like
Puppet.
just generally, yeah.
And what did your script actually did? It was generating the Puppet configuration file,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
What was the principle? How did you deploy it? Why did the client pull it from your server?
Why did the client pull it from it? Okay, so this is basically showing the lateral movement of, we already have access to the Puppet system,
To the server.
to the server.
Ah, okay.
Yes, that's right.
You own. And the Ansible?
In Ansible also, so it was, once you have access to the Tower server, what can you actually do? So it's called Ansible Tower or Ansible Node Management Server. Yeah.
Thanks.
Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.